Hello, welcome back to Learn Oikonomia. In this video, we are going to discuss the Phillips Curve Debate. A.W. Phillips, in his research paper which was published in 1958, he has indicated a negative statistical relationship between the rate of change in money wage and the rate of change in unemployment rate. So, it was shown that there exists a negative relationship between the two, and this was for the rate of prices as well as the rate of unemployment level. What initially was taken was the relationship between the rate of change in prices and the rate of change in unemployment, or we could simply say that initially the rate of change in prices means inflation, right? So initially the rate of change in inflation and rate of change in unemployment level was taken. I mean, these two indicators or these two variables were taken, and A.W. Phillips actually tried to see the relationship between the two, and he could find a negative relationship between these two variables, and this relationship is generalized as Phillips curve. Phillips first examined this negative relationship by using the data from UK, and he has taken this data from UK from 1961 to 1957, and on the graph you could see the plotted data. Here you could see that when there is an increase in the unemployment level, the rate of inflation would fall, and we could see that zero rate of inflation can be attained only with a positive high rate of unemployment or near full employment situation at a cost, and your near full employment situation could be attained only at a cost of high rate of inflation. So simply, the Phillips curve shows a negative relationship between the rate of change in unemployment and rate of change in inflation. When one increases, the other would fall, and vice versa. This is what happens in the case of Phillips curve. So we could say that there is a trade-off between inflation and unemployment as far as Phillips curve is concerned, and this means that higher the inflation rate, lower would be the unemployment level. Phillips correlation actually poses a dilemma to many policymakers. When we have to deal with unemployment, we should suffer some inflation. When we have to deal with inflation, we should suffer some unemployment. So this was a great dilemma to policymakers. If the objective of price stability is something the policymakers intend to attain, there would be high unemployment rate in the economy, or if the country designs some kind of policies to reduce unemployment in the economy, there would be some kind of problems with the price stability. That means that they have to sacrifice the objective of price stability. However, towards the end of 1960, the stable relationship between these two variables these began to look unstable as unemployment, wages, prices all began to rise. All these developments resulted in the emergence of newer and newer theories, and hence, as a result of this, newer and newer economic policies based on these theories came into being. Meanwhile, the Phillips curve, it had been discredited, although we could see that in 1960s and in early 1970s, many economists attempted to explain the inflation in terms of the logic of the initial Phillips curve, which was developed by A.W. Phillips. Policymakers, whether they belong to conservatives or whether they belong to liberals, irrespective of this differences, they were very much confused about what to choose, whether they have to go for high rate of inflation or low unemployment, or low rate of inflation which is coupled with high volume of unemployment. Because of this kind of confusion experienced by the policymakers, economists tried to find an alternative solution to this. In fact, we could see that many authors came out and they suggested that no longer, that means in 1970s, 1980s, the conclusion made by Phillips hold. And it had been demonstrated that no particular relationship between inflation and unemployment did exist. During the late 1970s and 80s, both inflation and unemployment changed, but not in the direction suggested by the previous Phillips curve by using 100 years data from 1861 to 1957. So there were many new sets of researchers coming in, and they could see that the initial Phillips curve was not holding. There is a disappearance of the trade-off between inflation and unemployment. So some authors, they began to argue that no such relationship, that too there is no such stable relationship between inflation and unemployment is there. That is what they could found. Coming to the expectations augmented Phillips curve. So with this new findings, what came into being is known as the expectation augmented Phillips curve, especially the monetary economist or the father of monetarism, Milton Friedman. I hope everyone know that Milton Friedman is the father of monetarism. I hope so. So he was the one who challenged the concept of stable relationship between inflation and unemployment, and he argued that such a trade-off, that means that a negative relationship between these two variables, it might hold in a short period, but that is not possible in the long run. Price or inflation expectations would influence the Phillips curve. That was the main reason that he could found. In other words, Phillips curve would shift or changes its position as expectations regarding prices would come, or expectations, when there is a change in expectations, this would affect the position of the Phillips curve. There can be a shift in the Phillips curve. If people expect that inflation in the coming period would persist, Phillips curve would shift to the right. Or if inflationary expectation shows a downward trend, Phillips curve will shift to left. This is what Friedman could understand. In short, Phillips curve might shift either to right or to left if the relationship between inflation or unemployment is not stable, or if there is inflationary expectations. And if these are not stable, that can lead to shift in the Phillips curve. In other words, we could see that if inflationary expectations are deemed to be stable, then there would not be any shift in the Phillips curve. Regarding the shifting of Phillips curve, Friedman considers influence of inflationary expectations. And this is known as adaptive expectations theory, or we could see that the expectations that are altered or adapted to experienced events. People, they make incorrect expectations many times, and with respect to price changes and all, they can make incorrect expectations, and this is mainly because they get incomplete information, and out of this incomplete information, or by using this incomplete information, they make incorrect expectations. This is why a trade-off in the relationship between inflation and unemployment emerges. But in the long run, we could see that the actual and expected price changes become equal as expectations. Ranging price changes become equal when expectations regarding price changes tend to become rational. This rational expectations view suggested that people guess future economic events rather correctly in the long run. Therefore, the impact of expectations, whether it is adaptive or it is rational, this has got an important bearing on the relationship between inflation as well as unemployment rate. This is mainly because of expectations. As per Friedman, there is no trade-off between inflation and unemployment in the long run. It's very important to understand that the long run Phillips curve, in terms of a diagram, where we can see the natural rate of unemployment, which was introduced by Friedman. Unemployment, as per Friedman, is natural when some people either do not get jobs or are willing to or are unwilling to accept jobs at minimum or at equilibrium real wage rate. So that means that there is a kind of involuntary unemployment. Such a natural rate of unemployment might be considered as a situation of full employment in the economy. In this figure, you could see the shifting of Phillips curve. Let's understand that the long run Phillips curve is a vertical line through the natural rate of unemployment. Further, we can see that the short run Phillips curves, there have been SRPC1, SRPC2 and SRPC3. These represent the different expected rate of inflation. Suppose starting from SRPC1, it shows zero inflationary expectations. That means that there is no changes in there is no expectation with respect to changes in prices, and there is a high rate of unemployment. In SRPC2, it shows a high expected rate of inflation. uh, in SRPC3, it shows more higher expected rate of inflation. As people's expectations about the future price level changes, short-run Phillips curve will shift upward. It shows a trade-off between inflation and unemployment. Since in the long run, we could see that expected rate matches the actual inflation rate, the long-run Phillips curve would become vertical, and it is at the natural rate or natural rate of unemployment or non-accelerated inflation rate of unemployment. It follows that at the or in the long run, there is no trade-off between these two variables. In the long run, any positive rate of inflation might persist with a natural rate of unemployment or non-accelerating rate of inflation or non-accelerating inflation rate of unemployment. That is unemployment at which inflation is not accelerating or decelerating. It is neither accelerating or not decelerating. Okay. So just assume that an economy is initially at point A in the figure. Here at NRU, U1 with a zero actual and expected rate of inflation. Just assume that the government thinks that this unemployment rate is pretty high, so it takes some steps to reduce its unemployment rate to oil. So, with adoption of policy measures, for example, expansion of money supply, this can cause aggregate demand to increase. So, the wage rate would rises and the level of unemployment to wage rate rises to in such a manner that there is a fall in the unemployment rate from OA to OL. This may cause a rise in the price level. The economy then moves from point A to point B, thereby suggesting a higher inflation rate and thus lower rate of unemployment, and this is along SRPC1. Since workers expect price level to increase, Phillips curve will shift to the right. It will shift upward to the right. Workers will now pitch a higher demand for wages, and as a result, a higher rate of inflation will appear at any given unemployment rate. If the same money wage growth is maintained, the economy will be back to UN, but with an inflation rate at but this is with an inflation rate of 6. This long run adjustment helps to move the economy from point B to point C, and further we could see that increase in money supply will result in temporary in reductions in unemployment below NRU. I mean further increase in money supply. This will result in temporary in reductions in unemployment below NRU or non-accelerated inflation rate of unemployment. The SRPC then shift to SRPC3. The economy in the long run moves from point D to point E. If the inflation rate is required to be lowered down, then the policymakers will be forced to increase the natural rate of unemployment beyond UN. This is based on the lower expected inflation rate. Adjustment will take place along SRPC3 from point E to F. As money wage declines, what happens is that jobs will be available and unemployment rate will continue to fall until C. This is on SRPC2. This will happen till SRPC2 is reached. And LRPC is thus a vertical line through your natural rate of unemployment or non-accelerated inflation rate of unemployment. You can join the points A, C, and D, and so on. So that's all for some discussions on the Phillips curve analysis. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more videos. You can be a part of my Telegram group and Telegram channel to discuss your doubt with respect to the topics we have covered in this channel. With respect to various videos we have covered in this channel, you can make discussions, or else you can take different topics outside this channel. I mean the topics which are not at all covered in this channel, you can take those topics as well, and you can make some discussions in the Telegram group or Telegram channel. So with that, I would like to end today's sessions. I'll be providing the links of both the Telegram group and Telegram channel in the description box. If you would like to be a part of that, you can use the same. With that, we end today's session. That's all. Thank you.